Greetings, friends, and welcome back to the Musings from the Mount podcast, where we explore some of life's deepest mysteries and greatest questions. I'm your host, Joseph Carenza, and today's episode takes us on a fascinating journey into the concept of incarnation. Join us as we discuss why some lives seem harder than others, the purpose behind our earthly challenges, and how our experiences shape who we become. We will explore intriguing ideas from the Agni Yoga teachings, the metaphor of life as a cosmic diving expedition, and the alchemical process of personal transformation. From the mystery of forgetting our past lives to the evolution of human consciousness through different civilizations, this conversation covers a lot of ground. You'll hear about the balance between the mystical and occult past, the power of choice in our spiritual journey, and even a touch of Lord of the Rings. Whether you're a spiritual seeker, a philosophy buff, or just curious about life's big questions, this episode promises to challenge your perspective and maybe even change how you view your own life's journey. And we hope you enjoy it. And if you do enjoy this podcast, please consider going to meditationmount.org and donating. Your donation helps us to bring you this podcast as well as all the other programs the Mount produces, both today and in the future. We're incredibly grateful and honored by your support. Okay, here we go with incarnation. So recently, and I can't even remember where, and it was more than one place, but this idea has been kind of kicking around. This idea about incarnating and life being more difficult for some people than others, like this sense of, oh, that's not fair, or comparing yourself to people who seem to have things so easily. And it was relating it to the idea of you can sometimes play these video games and you can pick different levels, different increasingly hard levels of difficulty. I mean, you might be able to wander around with having all the easy mode turned on, but what do you really learn? And so when you think about that, it's like the tougher your life is, the more lessons you learn. And, it has a weird relationship to who you turn out to be as a person, because as I thought about this, all the interesting people I know in my life, all the incredibly loving, incredibly skilled, all these people had incredibly difficult lives. Right. And it creates, you create yourself through this process.
That's a great point. And it immediately brings to mind the Agni Yoga teachings. And the Agni Yoga teachings said, look, this is the path of fire we're on. And by the way, we're going to take the steepest path up the mountain. Yeah. If you want a different route, find another path.
Right.
But we're doing this because two things. There is a great urgency in the world to get to the top of the mountain and claim that sovereign power so we can help with the changes, and because it is the quickest way to evolve. Now, I know, for instance, when I learned to rock climb, in the beginning you were top roped. There was somebody above you with the rope. And then you said, oh, I'm ready to lead. So you took the rope up with you. You were the first up. You were the lead. And that's a whole different thing when it isn't like, oh, hold me, I'm falling. Well, you put in your different anchor points and ideally the person below, if you fall, will hold you and the anchor points will hold. But it's just a different degree of difficulty when you say risk. So it's always back to you learn outside your comfort zone. But if the comfort zone, is too enfolding, as you said, nothing happens. You just sort of wander around and ho-hum. Yeah. If the step is too large from the comfort zone, then it can lead to misadventure. It has to lead to adventure. Right. Adventure, which is this moving towards something. And so I think you're absolutely right that the degree of difficulty, however, I've read in some of the teachings that there are those incarnations where you're just given a time to synthesize. And there may be one more pearl to complete your necklace. And so all you need that lifetime is to find that one pearl. And it's not the same as others. So you cannot compare. I know, Joey, I think all of us have gone through, why me? Why me? Why one thing after another? Why am I having a hard time when my friends seem to be cruising along? Why me? And then you go back to, then life should be easy. And you don't understand what life is or what incarnation is. Incarnation is the process whereby we learn by doing. We learn by being in action. We learn by embodiment. And so I remember, many times in my life, I'd ask myself the question, why on earth am I here? Literally, why on earth am I here? Why did I have to be born? I'd rather be somewhere else. There's this whole thing of not understanding why here and why now and why in this particular dense form. Because part of me always felt there was part of me that was more subtle, and this was a real compromise. You know the feeling?
Absolutely know the feeling. And I've had that same dialogue, that same conversation ongoing. And not for me, it's not in a woe, I said it as a woe is me, just utterly just dumbfounded by why? Why am I needed in this situation? What am I supposed to be doing or adding to this?
Exactly. Why do we need to incarnate? Why am I in this this clumsy body?
Yeah.
Why am I in this clumsy? Why do I have to keep it in good shape? Why do what's the point of it?
Yeah.
So every day, in addition to sort of meditating, I study some, a few minutes of the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning, I picked up an Agni Yoga book called Infinity, Volume 2. And the paragraph or the sloka, I read 3 of them today, and it prompted this exact conversation inside of me, Joey, because I was going, okay, so why incarnated life? And I'll just read a couple of sentences, not the whole thing. It says, indeed, it is easy for the spirit to strive upon the higher planes, but the earthly, the lowest pole, is established as the place of decision. Only there where light and darkness battle can the spirit manifest a free choice. Imbued by the emanations of the energies, the spirit can establish itself through the expression of its striving. Only when immersed in the earthly sphere can one manifest the subtlety of striving into higher spheres. Cosmic creativeness requires entirety of manifestation. Thus, the spirit, composed of all cosmic energies, must pass through all cosmic steps. And then it says, verily, humans must pass through purgatory, i.e. the purifying fires, otherwise the spirit cannot attain the predestined world which comprises all spheres. So it's saying the gateway to life is through bringing spirit into matter and releasing the spirit and light locked into matter. We touched on this before, but when I read that today, it was like, oh, right. So I don't have to feel sorry because I'm having a hard time or pity. I just say, no, how am I part of the working out? So I'm not a victim of anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of the working out. I'm part of the revelation. I'm part of the evolution. Therefore, that's why it's happening to me, because I'm part of it. I'm not a spectator. If I just want to live at home and be taken care of all my life, or live in the subtle worlds, then I haven't really incarnated. I haven't really stepped into the world. And it's a scary place for a lot of people.
It sure is.
So what else comes up when you think of this?
Well, that's an interesting concept. Two things. Just the idea that that you might be here just to learn this one last lesson. That's an interesting concept, as well as this idea that you can just kind of be along for the ride, or you can be involved in building the ride, or you can be involved in creating the ride, or it's such a different mindset. And I also wonder how much you can really evolve in one lifetime. And yet I see where I started to where I'm at now, and I think, okay, a lot is possible because I didn't start at a really great place.
Yeah.
I think I was on a little bit of an autopilot for a while, it seems like. But that is interesting how thinking of this place that we're in, this place we're incarnated, however you want to look at it, as maybe this this space where choice is possible, really does address a lot of the way that this world seems to work.
Well, choice is a necessity.
Yeah.
If we don't choose, we don't move.
Right.
We don't get... in a game, you've got to make a choice. You've got to do something.
Yeah.
You've got a pad and you've got to press some buttons. You've got to do something.
Right.
So you can't just sort of say, I'm time out for your whole lifetime. There are those periods in my life when I've wanted to hit the pause button for a really long time.
Yeah.
And go into a fetal position and cover myself in a warm blanket. I think the world is telling us now that we're part of this incredible outworking. And I was thinking, like, all these ageless wisdom teachings, all these concepts that we have access to, they have to make sense. They have to bring meaning. They have to make some practical contribution. So I remember a number of years ago when I was thinking about what's the best way of transmitting this wisdom. And it came very clear to me that it has to be how I would speak to my grandchildren. And knowing that they are probably more mature souls than I am, but they've just landed and they need to be oriented. So what would I say to a 7-year-old? And I actually wrote a little story for a 7-year-old. And it was all about this spirit that was being invited to live at the bottom of the ocean of life, at the most dense level where all the pressure was. And they were given this diving suit, which is the human form. It's a pressurized diving suit because it can withstand the pressures of Earth, not just physical, but emotional and mental pressure. And so we were lowered down, i.e. incarnated. We found ourselves on the ocean floor, and we've forgotten where we came from. Yeah. And if you like, the meta journey is humanity going down into matter, learning, garnering wisdom through experience, and then taking that experience back from the dense realms back in the process of evolution. We named this last time. Involution was how the diver got to the bottom of the ocean. Evolution is how we return with the gold and how we return having, if you like, liberated some of the light that was at the bottom, locked at the bottom of the ocean in matter itself. So when I think about the old-fashioned diving suit, there was always this, there were two lines. One, there was an oxygen line, and the other was a communication line. Well, when we incarnate into this human form, this pressurized diving suit, there are two lines as well. It's called the thread of consciousness and the life thread. Now, the life thread stays with us all the time and until it's time to come back from a reincarnation. Thread of consciousness is that which allows us to register and transmit to the soul the field notes. And it's real-time experience. And it's said when we die, or when we go to sleep each night, the line that is the communication line of consciousness is just released. So we then go back into the subtle worlds at night, and the body remains and gets re-energized. And the reason we wake up in a body that's alive is because the life thread is still intact. When you're ready to die, the soul says, oh, we've got to unplug the life thread this time. It looks as if protocol. Right, end of life checkup. What do? We sound a note. This note turns this switch.
Right.
And okay, so the body now is going to be recycled. The life thread is cut. The consciousness thread is still alive. And you find yourself in a different space of consciousness. Still your own state of consciousness, but at a different density. You're now back on the surface, if you like, or you're not at the the most dense. So that was my attempt to sort of explain to a 7-year-old using an illustration of a diver going down to the bottom of the ocean of how spirit had to enter matter in order to really experience the full spectrum. As we just read in this Agni Yoga, only when immersed in the earthly sphere can one manifest the subtlety of striving into higher spheres. And then, thus, the spirit composed of all cosmic energies. That means we're the whole thing. But the only way we can really access a realization of the whole thing and pass through all the cosmic steps is enter through the portal of incarnation. I find this amazing.
Yeah.
It's such a mystery because we could look at it as far as an individual, you and I, and our incarnational process. You can look at it from the perspective of humankind, of humanity. And you look at it as a planet. Because all the forms we see, when we look out in the sky, we see the planets in solid form. They didn't start out as solid forms. They condense from more refined, subtle levels of consciousness.
Yeah.
Just like water, you've got moist air, and then that collects into moisture, drops of water, and then at some point, because of the coldness of the atmosphere, it freezes.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. It's the densification of spirit in order to release the light that is locked up in the totality of who we are. I mean, I don't want to get too abstract around this, but we could really take a step back and say, well, why don't we look at the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden?
Yeah.
Because that is a biblical story, but it reflects the ageless wisdom teachings. It says when the human consciousness first became, if you like, this unit of consciousness, it was living on the astral level, the astral plane, which is more refined than the etheric physical or the dense physical. And that was called the Garden of Eden, the Adamic state. It was called the Adamic state, and that's where you got Adam and Eve. But the Adamic state is that state of, if you like, unawareness of self, because we're part of this amorphous field of consciousness. And so what happened, as we know in the story of Adam and Eve, Eve sort of was born out of the rib of the man. But what Eve did as the feminine aspect, it invited Adam to eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or of light and darkness. It wasn't a poison apple. This is not Snow White. And so what happened is when Adam ate the apple, suddenly saw a distinction between Adam and Eve. The splitting of this is where the split took place into the genders and the poles, because it was necessary. If you don't have the split and don't have the two poles of the magnet, you can't be co-creative agents. So it's said that then we were expelled from the garden. And then the story is the next level, we then lived in a space called the Hyperborean era. And the Hyperborean was when we were in this etheric physical. We were still not a dense form, and we weren't a solid form. And then this actually became solid in what we know as Lemuria. And some of the early examples of this would be the Aboriginals in Australia. I mean, they represent the first incarnation in dense physical of this consciousness.
Right.
And then after Lemuria, we're going back up the evolutionary arc. And then we had Atlantis. And Atlantis was there to develop once again, the astral awareness, but an astral awareness that had its own center of knowing, i.e. the self. And as we said before, what happened in Atlantis is because they had access to power and they still didn't have, if you like, the moral integrity or the ethics, the thing got really messy. What we're in now is called the Indo-Aryan or Indo-European period, where the mind is coming alive. So if you look at it, it was the astral, then we split into the two poles. The two poles went into the etheric, crystallized into the physical, and then we started to reclaim. Lemuria was about reclaiming control over the physical. So the spirit was living in physical. And then at Atlantis, it was so that we could then bring our emotions under control inside this human package. And then what we're in now is, can we bring the mind alive and as part of this package? And as we know, when the mind is not aligned to a higher purpose or serving the good of the whole, it can easily get weaponized and be a destructive agent. But let's not stop there. What's next? It's said that the next great period in civilization will be the age of Pacificus. We've had Atlantis, which was in the Atlantic. And it's said that Pacificus ushers in the next stage, which is the development of the intuition. And with the intuition, you have this understanding and knowing of life, and therefore there is an era of peace. So it said Pacificus. And the land masses always change. They break up and they reform. But it said geographically, Pacificus will be where currently Brazil is. That will be the heart of the new continent. Now, who knows? This is just what the ageless wisdom teaching tells us. I'm not taking this as gospel. What I love, though, is the story of how we evolve incarnation by incarnation. So Lemuria was a collective incarnation. Atlantis was a collective incarnation. What we're going through now is a collective incarnation. Pacificus will be a collective incarnation. And it says that it will take 7 turns of the spiral, 7 major civilizations for humanity to fully flower. Because after you have the intuition, then you're going into the higher aspects of spirit. And so the last and 7th will be where the whole thing's brought together synthetically, and that humanity then is the crown of creation. It will flower. I mean, that's a pretty vast cosmic story. I'm not asking people to believe it necessarily, but what I love, it reinforces for me this notion of we're on this spiral journey together, whether it's the spiral journey of an atom, a human being, a galaxy. But the thing is, it's all different stages of incarnated life. So we don't have to stay there in the cosmic realms, but I wanted to name that because when I look at our current humanity, we are dealing with the polarity and the battle in the mind. And when the mind is split in two, it's very difficult to live a life where compassion and love can flow. When separation is there, you get divisiveness. The heart is not there seeing diversity as an aspect of unity. At the moment, the mind is cutting things up. It's analyzing. The mind is not there to pull things together in the big picture, put the pixels back together so we can see the fullness of our humanity. So that may not be much help, what we're witnessing at the moment. But if you look around the world, you can see this ideological warfare that's going on. It could be political. It could be religious. It could be different social models. But when the mind starts to be the main agent of understanding, or the sole agent of understanding, it's very easy to have divisiveness and two camps. Mm-hmm. And then one identifies with one's own beliefs, of course, and therefore it becomes true. And what we have at the moment is the battle for the liberation of truth. whether it's Truth Social, whether it's whether it's the truth shall set you free, but the word truth has been inserted everywhere. So maybe we should bring this closer to earth. But I often look at what we are part of as the incarnation of the planet. The planet is a living being that will fulfill its destiny. We're an aspect of its destiny. Therefore, we incarnate many, many times inside the cycle of incarnation that the planet goes through. And the planet is an incarnational aspect of the solar system, etc., etc. It goes back to the theory of the nested lives. So there's no way out of it, Joey.
Right.
There's no way out of it. And just a little gentle reminder, people, suicide is not a way out.
Yeah.
It ain't.
Yeah. There's no exit.
There's no exit. The only way is through.
Yeah. It is interesting to think about incarnation in terms of, you're here to learn a lesson or lessons. And when you relate back to, the Matrix, where Neo is being he's learning all these things. He's downloading all the programs. And if you think about it in terms of cosmic time, our lifetimes are just a blink. It is. So if you think about it as multiple incarnations of learning multiple lessons, it kind of makes a little more sense. We just experience it much slower.
Well, and how can you expect if you go to you're 7 years old or whatever it is, and you go to school, you're not going to graduate from university that year.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like there are stages, there are phases, there are different classrooms, there are different degrees of knowledge.
It's also interesting the whole forgetting factor and how I've been sort of obsessed with these videos of that I've seen them recently of children, very young children, discussing like incredibly like deep philosophical kind of ideas about incarnation, what happens after you die, and then you realize like they're just saying stream of consciousness what they're thinking, but then you forget it, and maybe when you hit about 7 or 8. The whole veil of forgetting really sets in.
Well, you reminded me of this wonderful cartoon. It was a young boy, probably around 7, and his grandfather. And his grandfather was saying something, and the little boy said, "Look, don't worry, Grandpa. I didn't believe in reincarnation when I was your age either."
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the summary of the videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but it makes sense that in order to really fully commit to the game, fully commit to the lesson, you have to forget. And you have to, which is a crazy concept to think. It's a bit of a leap of faith, but one that it feels and makes sense.
It's a leap of faith from our perspective, but the soul is just a necessity in the ongoing evolution of consciousness. I think we've quoted this book before. It's not a very happy ending book. It's Briefing for a Descent into Hell by Doris Lessing. And there's one particular scene when there's a group of souls waiting to incarnate, and they get briefed. I think it's either the god Mercury or somebody like that comes in. I'm going to give you a briefing. Here's what you're going to expect on the earth. Okay, here, and here's your assignments. Oh, by the way, you're going to forget everything I said when you wake up on earth. But the good news is you are carrying sealed orders. You have to access your sealed orders.
Yeah, and that's the trick, isn't it? Discovering what your purpose is, and then also there's the crazy notion that like if you don't get it this time, it's okay, just come back again. It's you just keep coming back.
Yeah, but what in nature contains a sealed order? It's the seed, and an order.
Yeah.
Go back to the ancient Scandinavian. Ord means word, so it's the old formula.
Right. And your DNA too. It's encoded.
It's encoded, and so what you've got is the promise and the destiny, and so that's your divine order. It's your sealed orders So we are under orders because it is that which we're here to express. Nobody's ordering us about, but we belong to a higher order. There is a higher aspect of ourself that has to show itself in form. I mean, Michelangelo didn't say, I'd like everyone to close their eyes and imagine this figure in marble. He's about 12 foot tall. No, he said, give me a block of marble. Give me a hammer and chisel. This is what it looks like. This is David.
Yeah.
Had to create it in form to reveal it in form. So it isn't a conceptual. We're not in a classroom where we're talking about stuff. This is an outdoor classroom. That's a big thing now with children. And my grandson went to an outdoor classroom where you get up and, your classroom is your environment.
Yeah, I think I would have liked that. I wasn't exactly a classroom oriented.
Well, it was like corporate America when I was there. Why am I in this building when the sun is shining and the flowers are out there? What am I doing inside this building? Anyway, I think we know it's all about choice. But the big choice of the soul is to reveal itself in matter. And the only way we can do that, as the Agni Yoga teaching just pointed out, is to come on down. Come on down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an invitation to take part in your own life and discover what it is that you're here to learn. And I think it's also, why is that so scary though for most people? I know whether unconsciously or not, I think I was avoiding that for quite a bit of my life.
Same here. Same here. Yeah, there's an easy way of I want the easy way out. I want to, I'll find an excuse for not doing something rather than wholeheartedly engaging in something.
Yeah.
But that is more painful in the end.
It sure is.
It's missed opportunities. Yeah. Imagine your life review at the end. You go, oh God, I was given, my soul put that in front of me and I missed out on that.
Yeah.
There may be regrets and hopefully there's no blame, but we take the opportunities. I want to just read a couple more sentences from the Agni Yoga slokas that I was looking at this morning, because it says humanity is saturated with cravings. So there's all these cravings. When the spirit yields to the asserted cravings, the step into evolution is limited by the visible. So when we have these outer cravings, all we see is a visible outcome. The opposite striving of the spirit established the step of affirmed evolution. It says the two opposites are always mutually confirmed. While one part strives to possess the visible, the other part strives towards the invisible. Thus, in an epoch of cosmic reaction, humanity may be divided into slaves, and those who strive for cosmic possession, and by those who carry the cosmic fires. Thus our carriers of fire so battle, and the clutching hands are of the slaves bereft of spirit. Only those striving to infinity can understand the beauty of beingness. Now, that's very lofty language. But it basically said, whatever we crave, energy follows thought, we'll get it. All your wishes will be granted. That's the thing about the planet Earth. It is, I wish this would come true. Well, you wish hard enough and it will. It's called the power of thought, and it will manifest it. I remember reading in Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda's, about his teacher, who saw in some students this desire for riches and fame, and said, okay, I'll help you out. And he precipitated this huge temple. I think it was made of emeralds and crystals and precious metals, and go in there and play. Here's your playhouse for a while. Go in, get it out of your system. Now, do you feel better? Look, you can have this, but that's not what it's about. It's the release of the diamond of truth inside you. It's not the outer diamond you're looking for. It's the diamond sutra of love that lives in your heart. That's what happens when the lotus finally opens. It reveals the diamond at the heart of the lotus, the jewel within the lotus. I mean, so we're always looking for the outer representations of spirit. Gold mining. So we go on a gold rush.
Right.
The soul is not on a gold rush. The soul is here to refine and produce gold through the alchemical process of incarnation. And then coming back up through the layers, each one being more refined than the other, till in the end, what you have is the most refined expression of your substance, which is gold. The soul is gold by color, and wisdom is Solomon's gold. So it's another way of looking at earth life as an alchemical process. And alchemy, as we know, it's done repeatedly. The secret of alchemy is consciously repeating an experiment until it reaches that point where everything clicks, when you get it.
Right. That is the birth of what we call the scientific method, but it's that exploration, the methodical, incremental experimentation.
Well, in earlier times, when one incarnated, it was said that you took either one or two paths, a mystical path or an occult path.
Okay.
And it's said now, the idea is to bring the two together to a point of synthesis. So you have your scientific or occult understanding. Occult simply means hidden.
Right.
But you have your mystical where your heart is open and you are sensing God, not just trying to experiment and dissect.
Okay.
So when you bring the mystical and the occult paths together, you have the opportunity to fully get it.
Right. It's a bridging of those two poles.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting concept to wrap your head around. The occult being the hidden, and then because we think a lot today of mystical and occult being very similar, the same, and they're not.
They're two different paths. They were. Well, you see the mystics. You see St. Francis of Assisi. These are great mystics, and what they did was, just as Thomas à Kempis wrote in Imitation of Christ, they followed the example of this being called Jesus, and they lived as if Jesus was living through them. And this was the mystical approach. It was practicing the presence. I live each moment so that God can live through me. That was this mystical approach, and it's devotional. But it's devotional meaning that I open myself to the mystery of life by opening my heart to God, devoting myself. It's not subservient. It became that later. Then you get devotees who but it's realizing that when I give myself to a higher version of myself, that's how I pull myself up by my own bootstraps. And then you got the occultists who by scientific experiment, the problem with the occult is if it is not infused with love and compassion, it can get very scary. You have the Aleister Crowlers of the world, and you have a lot of nefarious goings on because they know the workings.
Yeah.
But they're using the principles and the protocols for their own selfish ends.
Right. Yeah, you can use a wood chipper for a lot of things.
You certainly can.
There's a lot of power. That's the thing. I think that's the sort of, to use the sort of Star Wars reference. There's a lot of allure and a lot of temptation in the dark side because there's a lot of power there, and it can be used nefariously. But it can also, like anything, a tool can quickly become a weapon.
Absolutely. And there's two things. The dark side can be the nefarious or evil intentions that people have, but it also can be the hidden light that's locked up in matter, which was the release of the atomic energy. Who knew that much power was locked up in one single atom? Good God. Imagine how much power is locked up in the human heart.
Yeah.
And how do we access that power? It's not through fission, it's through fusion, by joining of hearts together.
Right. Yeah. It's an amazing power plant. We're amazing. We're amazing power plants. We have
Well, yeah.
incredible power.
And then when we join our heart with the heart of the universe or the heart of the planet, the heart of love, we are fused and we have access to that power. And that power can change the world. If you have access to power without love, it's a pretty bleak landscape that you create.
Yeah.
And it is Mordor. And Sauron rules.
Right,
And Saruman, but Sauron rules.
Yeah. That is the power without love. Yeah.
Saruman, and we don't want to get hung up in Lord of the Rings, but Saruman, I think, had a cloak that looked white, but it wasn't. It was a mixture of all the colors that kept, scintillating and moving, gave the illusion of being white.
Right.
He hadn't synthesized.
Yeah.
He hadn't synthesized the seven back into the one light. Whereas Gandalf the Grey went through his big thing and came back as Gandalf the White. Anyway, this is not intended to just be for Tolkien freaks.
Yeah. So that's always a good place to go.
It's a good place to go.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
What of a practical nature does all this help with, Joey? I mean, when I wake up each day and say, oh, God, what's the purpose? How am I going to get out of this? And why me? Why is this happening to me?
Well, there's a underlying thread of identifying with your beliefs that you spoke about earlier. And I think that's probably, for me, one of the most interesting, difficult, compelling journeys of part of my life is really examining my beliefs, determining like what the level of importance is, what the level of attachment is. And the more that I can detach from my beliefs, I mean, they're still there, but the less I can let them be so lessen their influence on my actual action. Right. I find my life is much more beautiful and much more it's just so wide and open, and all this new things, new energy comes in, new people come in, new opportunities. But the more I tightly hold on to beliefs, it's like it's like holding sand. The more you try to grasp it, the more it falls through your fingers. And that comes back to something we're all struggling with now on a practical level, is this idea of truth or this idea of fact. And it's like you can pick any field anywhere and just wait a week, and some dearly held belief has just been overturned,
Yeah, and I remember you said to me a couple of days ago, what if the teachings were wrong or not? And I thought, this is an interesting question, Joey. It's what if our interpretation of truth is distorted? Because my understanding of the ageless wisdom teaching is this truth, like this Olympic flame that's handed down generation to generation, civilization to civilization, is packaged differently. Sometimes it's packaged around a tight belief system. Other times it's packaged more loosely, artistically. And therefore, what we're looking at now is how to liberate ourselves from the thought forms of what we think it is, not what it is. And I'm reminded, as we're speaking now, of the Theosophical Society, and I love their sort of motto: there is no religion higher than truth. And then they have two postulates. They have two major statements. One is, there is one boundless, immutable principle. And the other one is brotherhood, which merely means kinship, that everything's connected. Now, you can expound on those and put belief systems around it, and that's where people then get into arguments and, no, I believe this, no, that's not right. But what I believe, what they've come closest to, there is one boundless, immutable principle. And they say brotherhood, but it's kinship. All life is connected. Everything's based on that. It doesn't tell you what it is, but it basically, one boundless, immutable principle. That's the mystery we're discovering, because we are part of the mystery. We're talking about the unveiling of the mysteries and the revelation of the mysteries. We are the actual mystery that's being revealed. It's not we're trying to reveal something external to ourselves. We are the revelation of the mystery. inside the classroom of daily life. I mean,
Yeah. That's important to think about.
That's what it's about.
That you are the mystery. Like that's it's beautiful, and it's also profound in the simplicity of it, but it's also hard to wrap your head around it.
But how does the mystery get revealed? By each aspect of the one realizing itself, joining together in a collective realization. How do you do that? You do it in stages. How are those stages accomplished? Through incarnational cycles, through seasons of growth. I mean, we are seasoned with time. We're seasoned by time. And I guess I'm more at peace now knowing that I'm not earthbound. I'm earth-focused at the moment. I used to get really uptight about committing to something. And then I thought, no, look at a commitment as focused freedom. I take the freedom of my choice and all of my energy, and I agree to place it here now. And by placing it here and now, at one level, I constrain myself to something. But what I'm doing is I'm giving myself a focus in time and space. And without that focus in time and space, the mystery cannot be revealed. Without the incarnational field, as the Agni Yoga teachings are telling us, we can't figure it out. So incarnation, when people look at me and say, well, do you believe in incarnation? I'll often just say, well, how do you think we made it back again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we are still revealing the mystery, and sometimes we forget that we are the mystery in revelation.
Yeah, with the ongoing, all singing, all dancing show.
Otherwise, it's just Joey and Michael trying to survive and get by each day and wondering why the hell life is so tough.
Mm-hmm. That's right, and it is really fascinating and beautiful, and all those mysteries. It's but it does. It's funny how you as you get older, you get some more perspective. You've lived more life, and it becomes more absurd and beautiful, but also it seems directed, and it seems like, oh yeah, these are lessons. It's obvious these are lessons I needed to learn. It just seems so obvious to me now. Like, of course, these things happen to me in my life because, like, when I think about if you think of like a tools on in a drawer, it's like I go reach for a tool. That tool's not there yet, and that's that's why I'm learning this.
Exactly.
And but it does feel like there is the place. There's I go to reach for these things, in my head or in my heart, and sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. But just the fact that the idea that they should be there is like, oh, okay, I see.
That's what Agni Yoga refers to as striving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you put your mind and your thought to, I need that tool, you strive towards attaining it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only place you can actually fashion the tool and put it in your hand is on earth.
Right. And it's like you're here to learn all these lessons, and you think that we finish here, and it's like, no, this is the finishing school, so that you can then go out on your real adventure.
And we're destined to become planets and stars at some point. It's just a different shape and size body.
Yeah, that's fascinating to think about.
The indwelling life will always need a form. At the moment, Michael's occupying a sort of a male human form. But when that aspect of the one that I am now is more mature, maybe it will take on a planetary body because it has the capacity to hold a planet together or a solar system.
Yeah.
And in the end, we hold the whole thing together in a self-realized way. So this is a good starting point. So Earth School, Earth School is a tough school, man.
It is.
School of hard knocks.
It's a school. Yeah. You get a PhD from here, you're set. You're ready to go. That is a fascinating concept, though, to think about. And when you think about the Earth as one system, one life, and holding that together with all these, 8 billion people, all these different thoughts, desires. It's like that's the capacity to hold that space. It's huge.
You and I wake up in the morning. How am I going to get through this day? Yeah. Imagine the planetary beings say, okay, today I've got all these aspects of myself, and I've got this really one troublesome spot in my being. It's called this fourth realm of human beings.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm losing my mind. Oh, by the way, no, I haven't constructed my true mind yet. That's what they're working on.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, dear Joey. I guess we accept that it's a mystery and we say yes to life.
Mm-hmm.
Say yes. And we say yes together.
That's important. Yeah.
That really, because we're coming up to the final days of Group Endeavor.
Group Endeavor.
And then in a couple of days, on the 21st of June, we switch to unanimity, the principle of unanimity. So anyway, well, thank you for this. Yeah. How much do I owe you, Doctor? I feel better now.
That's good. All right, I do too. All right, that was great. Thank you, Michael.
Let's schedule our next session.
Yes, let's do. Same time, same bat channel, same
same couch.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Joe.